When Drew Sidora has to physically plant herself between two grown women on a castle trip in Scotland, you know something has gone terribly wrong. Porsha Williams and Shamea Morton, best friends since childhood, were seconds away from throwing hands. But here's what nobody's talking about. This wasn't a sudden explosion. This was the final detonation of a bomb that's been ticking for years. And the fuse, it might have been lit the moment Shamea decided she wanted to be on this show. Let's rewind. Because if you only watched season 16 of Real Housewives of Atlanta, you saw the friendship crumble. You watched Shamea and Porsha go from inseparable to barely civil. You sat through that reunion where nothing got resolved, where both women left with their guards up and their hearts closed. But what you didn't see was everything that came after the cameras stopped rolling. That prayer video Shamea posted, the one where her mother laid hands on her while she apologized to the entire cast. Porsha, Drew, Angela, Brett, Kenya, Cynthia, Kelly, even Phaedra, who barely appeared. Shamea stood there, voice shaking, asking for forgiveness for making anyone feel inferior, for any insults, for any wounds she'd caused. She talked about starting fresh, about hoping her prayer would enter their hearts and households. And then she said that's a wrap on season 16. Except it wasn't a wrap, not even close. Because when the Neighborhood Talk dropped their exclusive report, suddenly everyone realized season 16 was just the opening act. The real drama, the moment when words almost turned to violence, that happened during filming for season 17 on a cast trip to Scotland. In a location that should have been all ancient castles and whiskey tastings and dramatic scenery for perfect Instagram content, instead it became the setting for two women who grew up together to nearly destroy each other completely. Kyle from the Neighborhood Talk put it plainly. He keeps his ears to the streets, and the tea was brewing down in Atlanta with those Southern Belle peaches. Specifically with Porsha Williams and Shamea Morton. Their lifelong friendship had deteriorated before viewers' eyes in season 16, but season 17 would show the continuation of that fallout, and this time things escalated to the point where hands were almost thrown. Not just harsh words, not just shade and subtweets, actual physical confrontation. Here's where it gets interesting. The source told Kyle that during the cast trip to Scotland, Porsha and Shamea got into a heated, nasty argument. The kind of argument where voices rise and bodies move closer and everyone in the room knows it's about to cross a line. It got to the point where the two were about to put paws on each other. That's when Drew Sidora, of all people, stepped into the middle. Drew physically positioned herself between these two women before laces went flying, before it turned into the kind of brawl that would define the entire season and possibly end careers. Think about that for a second. Drew Sidora as peacemaker. Drew, who has her own messy storylines, her own drama, her own struggles playing out on camera. Drew became the voice of reason, the physical barrier between two former best friends who were ready to fight like strangers in a parking lot. But let's talk about what nobody wants to say out loud. The timing of this exclusive report, making it to one of the top Black blogs on social media, right when the show needs buzz, right when people are asking where the season 17 trailer is, right when the Real Housewives of Atlanta needs something to get people excited because, let's be honest, the live viewership numbers are telling a clear story. Decline across the board. And it's not like audiences are jumping up and down about Atlanta coming back, especially without NeNe leaks. People are more excited about NeNe potentially returning to the network in some form than they are about the actual new season. That's a problem for production. That's a problem for Bravo. That's a problem for everyone involved. So when an exclusive drops about Porsha and Shamea nearly fighting in Scotland with Drew playing referee, you have to ask yourself, is this organic tea or is this strategic rollout? Because here's how it works. Production sources, cast members, people adjacent to the show, they leak information to specific media outlets. They know which blogs will run with it, which personalities will talk about it, which stories will generate conversation. And sometimes those sources come to content creators expecting immediate coverage, expecting everyone to jump on the story and spread it everywhere. But sometimes the response is more measured. Sometimes people hear the tea and file it away, waiting to see if there's more to it, waiting to see how the pieces fit together. This Scotland fight had been whispered about before somewhere on social media. Someone had mentioned it. Someone had heard something, but without confirmation, without details, without the full picture, it stayed in the realm of rumor. Now it's being positioned as exclusive breaking news timed perfectly for promotional rollout. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It absolutely could have happened exactly as described. But the machinery of reality television promotion is sophisticated. Information gets released when it serves a purpose, and right now that purpose is getting people talking about season 17. So let's talk about what we know. We know Shamea returned for season 17 despite a lot of viewers not being particularly excited about it. Not because Shamea is a bad person, but because her first season didn't land the way production hoped. She came across as trying too hard, performing for the camera in ways that felt uncomfortable to watch. Cringy was the word a lot of people used. And yes, some viewers now say Kiana is even more cringy, but that's a different conversation. The point is, Shamea's season 16 presence divided the audience. Some people saw potential, others saw someone who didn't quite fit the Atlanta energy, but there was unfinished business with Porsha. That reunion left everything open-ended, fractured, unresolved. From a production standpoint, that's actually perfect. Unresolved conflict is future content. It's storyline continuation. It's a reason to bring someone back even if the audience is lukewarm. Because if you can get resolution, or better yet, escalation, you've got compelling television. And escalation is exactly what happened in Scotland. Now let's go back to something Angela said during the after show last season, something that stuck with people because it reframed the entire Porsha and Shamea dynamic. Angela suggested that Shamea played the long game, that she maintained her friendship with Porsha specifically because she knew it would eventually get her on the show, that once Shamea secured her spot, once she had her peach, the friendship became disposable. That's Angela's theory. That's Angela's read on the situation. Is it true? That's complicated, because relationships are complicated, and attributing calculated manipulation to someone requires evidence beyond suspicion. Could Shamea have wanted to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta and seen her friendship with Porsha as a pathway? Absolutely. Could that desire have influenced how she navigated their relationship? Possibly. But does that mean the entire friendship was fake, was strategic, was nothing more than a multi-year con to get on television? That's harder to prove. What's also true is this. Porsha is not completely innocent in the downfall of their relationship. Nobody's saying she is. Friendships don't disintegrate because of one person's actions. They fall apart because of accumulated hurts, miscommunications, unmet expectations, betrayals both real and perceived. Porsha carries responsibility for whatever happened between them, just like Shamea does. But the narrative that Shamea used Porsha as a stepping stone to fame, that's the narrative gaining traction. And once a narrative takes hold in the court of public opinion and social media, it's almost impossible to dislodge. Which brings us to Porsha's recent interview with Entertainment Tonight. Because while all this Scotland fight drama is brewing, while the promotional machine is starting to turn for season 17, Porsha is out doing press. And she's talking about her storyline for the new season. Specifically, she's talking about her new relationship with a woman. A relationship she's choosing to show on camera, to make public, to live out loud. In the interview, she confirms they're dating. She confirms it's exclusive. She talks about how good it feels to be in a relationship during cuffing season, especially after being alone for over a year while going through her divorce from Simon Guobadia. She talks about that loneliness, that numbness, that period where dating wasn't even an option because she was too raw, too broken, too focused on just surviving the end of her marriage. And then when she started feeling like herself again, she wanted to be true to who Porsha really is. She wanted to do what felt natural. She acknowledged bringing someone onto the show is a big deal. Dating on camera is a big deal. But she said she's always been open and honest on Housewives. She's always let the cameras get to know her. She's always been transparent. Except, and here's where it gets messy, that directly contradicts what Shamea said last season. Remember that sit-down between Porsha and Shamea? The one where Shamea dropped a bomb that left everyone, including Porsha, looking blindsided? Shamea said she wished the real Porsha would show up. She said Porsha had told her they would have to pay her more money to show her real self on the show, meaning the Porsha viewers see the Porsha performing on camera. That's not the complete person. That's a curated version, a version Porsha is willing to show for her current paycheck, but the deeper, messier, more authentic Porsha, that requires more money. When Shamea said that on camera, the reaction was immediate. Wait, what side of Porsha are we getting? What more could there be? And you're already the highest paid cast member, so what exactly are you holding back? It called into question everything Porsha had ever shared on the show. It suggested layers of performance and calculation that viewers hadn't fully considered. So when Porsha now sits with Entertainment Tonight and talks about always being open and honest, about always being transparent, it rings hollow to people who remember what Shamea revealed. It creates cognitive dissonance. Either Porsha genuinely believes she's been transparent, or she's rewriting history to fit her current narrative. Either Shamea was lying about what Porsha told her, or Porsha is lying now about her level of honesty. And then there's the pattern people have noticed with Porsha in relationships. When she was with Cordell Stewart, she played the Stepford wife role, perfect football wife, supportive and polished and fitting into that lifestyle. When she was with Simon Gobadia, she leaned into being Nigerian, embracing his culture, his world, his identity. Now she's with a woman, and she's talking about liberation and living out loud and being true to herself. Each relationship seems to bring a different version of Porsha. Each partner seems to unlock a different personality. Some people see that as growth, as evolution, as someone exploring different aspects of themselves through different connections. Other people see it as someone who doesn't have a solid core identity, who morphs to fit whoever she's with, who performs whatever version of herself the relationship requires. We all have friends like this. People whose entire personality shifts depending on who they're dating. The music they listen to changes, the way they dress changes, the things they care about change, and you're left wondering who they actually are when nobody's watching, when there's no partner to perform for. With Porsha, that tendency is magnified by the fact that it's all playing out on national television. Every relationship shift, every personality evolution, every new version of herself is documented and analyzed and discussed. And for some viewers, it's exhausting. It feels inauthentic. It feels like watching someone constantly reinvent themselves without ever landing on something real. But here's another way to look at it. Porsha went through a divorce. She spent over a year feeling lonely and numb and disconnected from herself. When you go through something that painful, something that destroys the future you thought you'd have, you come out different on the other side. Maybe Porsha genuinely is finding herself. Maybe she's genuinely exploring parts of her identity she'd suppressed or ignored. Maybe dating a woman is liberating for her in ways dating men never was. Maybe this isn't performance. Maybe this is actual discovery. Or maybe it's both. Maybe Porsha is genuinely exploring her identity while also being hyper-aware of how it plays on camera, how it reads to viewers, how it positions her for the season. Reality television doesn't allow for pure authenticity because the camera's presence changes everything. The moment you know you're being filmed, you're making choices about what to show and how to show it. Porsha can be genuinely in love and genuinely exploring her sexuality while also knowing this storyline is ratings gold. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. But getting back to Shamea and that Scotland fight, because that's the through line here. Two women who've known each other their entire lives, who grew up together, who shared history and secrets and dreams, are now at the point where physical violence almost happened. Drew Sidora had to step between them. Think about what that means. Think about the level of anger, hurt, betrayal required for childhood friends to be ready to actually fight each other. What could Porsha have said? What could Shamea have done? What accusations were thrown? What truths were revealed? What lines were crossed that turned an argument into something that almost became a brawl? We don't have those details yet. The Neighborhood Talk exclusive gave us the framework, the basic facts, heated argument, almost physical. Drew intervened, but the content of that argument, the specific words exchanged, the moments that pushed it to the edge, those will presumably play out when season 17 airs. That's the carrot being dangled. That's what's supposed to get people to tune in. And maybe it will work. Maybe the promise of seeing Porsha and Shamea finally explode will drive viewership. Maybe people who were lukewarm about season 17 will show up for that confrontation. Or maybe people are tired of manufactured drama, tired of friendships being destroyed for content, tired of watching the same patterns play out season after season. Because here's what's ironic about this whole situation. Everyone was worried K. Michelle joining the cast would bring love and hip-hop energy, would lower the quality, would stink up the place with that particular brand of reality television messiness. But K. Michelle isn't the one reportedly fighting in Scotland. K. Michelle isn't the one whose lifelong friendship is imploding on camera. It's the people who've been on Real Housewives of Atlanta for years. It's Porsha and Shamea, both embedded in the Atlanta social scene, both with history on the show, who are the ones escalating to violence. Maybe K. Michelle will actually bring fresh energy. Maybe having someone new, someone from a different world, someone who isn't tangled up in years of Atlanta Housewives history. Maybe that's exactly what the show needs. Because the current cast dynamics clearly aren't sustainable. When childhood friends are ready to fight each other in Scotland, something is broken beyond repair. And that brokenness is happening against a backdrop of declining viewership across the entire Real Housewives franchise. The live numbers don't lie. People are watching less. Engagement is down. The formula that worked for years isn't working the same way anymore. Production can say whatever they want about streaming numbers and delayed viewing and different consumption patterns, but the live viewership decline is real, and it's consistent, and it indicates audiences are losing interest. Part of that is franchise fatigue. There are so many Real Housewives shows now that the market is oversaturated. Part of it is predictability. Viewers can see the manipulation, the producer-driven storylines, the manufactured conflicts. Part of it is that the real world has become so chaotic and stressful that watching wealthy women fight each other feels tone-deaf and exhausting rather than entertaining. And for Atlanta specifically, there's the Nene factor. Whether people want to admit it or not, Nene Leakes was the heart of that show for years. Her presence, her humor, her willingness to be vulnerable and messy and real, that's what made Atlanta different from the other franchises. When she left, something essential left with her. Other cast members have tried to fill that void. Some have succeeded in carving out their own space, but nobody has replaced what Nene brought to the table. So when rumors circulate about Nene potentially returning to Bravo in some capacity, people get excited, more excited than they are about season 17 of Atlanta. That should tell production something. That should tell Bravo something. The audience wants Nene back more than they want to see Porsha and Shamea fight in Scotland. But Nene isn't coming back to Atlanta, at least not right now. So the show has to work with what it has. And what it has is a cast that's fracturing, friendships that are imploding, and a desperation to create moments compelling enough to stop the viewership decline. Enter the Scotland fight. Enter the exclusive report timed perfectly for promotional rollout. Enter Drew Sidora as unlikely peacemaker. Enter the promise of seeing two childhood friends finally destroy each other completely. Is it enough? Will people tune in? Will the ratings stabilize? Or will this be another season where the live numbers continue their downward trend while production insists everything is fine? The January trailer will tell us a lot. How they edit that Scotland confrontation, how much they show versus how much they tease, whether they can create a must-watch moment that transcends the franchise fatigue and declining interest, whether they can make Porsha and Shamea's broken friendship feel like something viewers need to witness rather than something they've seen a dozen times before in different variations. Because at the end of the day, this is a tragedy masquerading as entertainment. Two women who knew each other as children, who built a friendship over decades, who presumably loved and trusted each other, are now enemies. Their friendship has been commodified, dramatized, and destroyed for content, for ratings, for a storyline that will play out over 10 or 12 episodes before being dissected at a reunion and then forgotten when the next season starts production. Shayma's prayer video, the one with her mother, feels even sadder in this context. She apologized to everyone. She asked for fresh starts. She talked about wishing the best for all the women. And then months later, she's in Scotland almost coming to blows with the friend she grew up with. What happened between that prayer and that fight? What changed? What escalated? What made reconciliation impossible? Maybe we'll find out when the season airs. Maybe the episodes will provide context, will show the accumulation of slights and betrayals that led to that moment, or maybe we'll just get the explosion without the explanation. The fight without the foundation, the drama without the depth, and Porsha will continue doing press, talking about her new relationship, her transparency, her authenticity. She'll navigate questions about Shamea with practiced ease, saying just enough to keep people interested without giving away the season's big moments. She'll lean into her new storyline, her new identity, her new version of herself, and viewers will watch and wonder which Porsha is real, if any of them are, if it even matters anymore. The Scotland fight will trend on social media. People will take sides. Team Porsha versus Team Shamea. Arguments will erupt in comment sections about who's really at fault, who played whom, whether their friendship was ever genuine. The discourse will generate engagement, which will generate visibility, which will hopefully generate viewership. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, two women who used to be best friends will have to live with the fact that their relationship became content, that their private pain became public entertainment, that the friendship they built over a lifetime was destroyed in a season. Drusilla stepped between them in Scotland. She stopped the fight from happening, but she couldn't stop the fracture. She couldn't repair what was already broken. She could only prevent it from getting worse in that specific moment. The real question isn't what happened in Scotland. The real question is whether any friendship can survive reality television, whether it's possible to maintain authentic relationships when cameras are documenting everything, when producers are pushing for conflict, when your personal life is content to be packaged and sold. For Porsha and Shamea, the answer seems to be no. Their friendship couldn't survive it. And now we'll all watch it die, episode by episode, until the reunion wraps and the cycle starts again.